with everybody's time.
We're just waiting for you and we're ready to roll.
Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so you want me to officially start the meeting? Great, great. So I'd like to call this meeting, the meeting of the Race Equity and Inclusion Working Group to order. And in calling this meeting to order, I want to thank each of you for joining us today. I do apologize in advance about the technology problems, but I'm sure all of you have experienced that in this environment that we're in. So it's exciting to be the chair-elect of SACOG and also the chair of this Race Equity and Inclusion Working Group. So thank you again for joining us. And before we jump into the meeting, let's take care of some housekeeping. Lynette, would you please take the roll and share any additional notes, provide any additional direction, tell us exactly what we're supposed to do, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just a couple of quick reminders for members of the public who are wishing to make a comment during the meeting. Instructions for doing that are indicated on the agenda, which is on our website. And then also for our working group members, when you're not speaking, if you could please mute your device, that will help us with any potential feedback issues. I'll go ahead and take roll now and start with our SACOG board members. Director Clark Kretz is absent. Director Gallardo?
Yes.
Gog?
Yes.
Guerrero? Absent. Middleton?
Here.
Saragosa?
Here.
Chenier? Absent. Soon?
Here.
Vice Chair Frericks is absent, and Chair Jennings?
I'm here.
Thank you. And then moving to our external members, Avital Barnea? Absent. Carolyn Coleman?
Here.
Chet Hewitt? Absent. Elisa Herrera? I thought I saw her online earlier.
I was on earlier, so hopefully she can get back on.
Right. I'll just mark her absent for now. Eileen Jacobs?
Here.
Holly Nickel?
Here.
Debbie Odokind?
Here.
Christine Tien?
Here.
Josh Wood? Absent. Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Any additional direction you need to give us or anything at all before we get started?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, and do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment.
Wonderful, wonderful. So once again, I want to thank you for being here today. You know who I am, and I am excited to be chairing this committee. It is good to see all of your faces in 2022 for the first time. Some of you I've seen individually, but for the most part, this is the first time I'm seeing you. And even though I see you on the screen last year and I see you on the screen this year, you look better in 2022 than I've ever seen you in the past. I just want to let you know that. Your smiling faces, see, that's what I got to have this whole meeting. Your smiling faces, your energy. I need everything that you can give me in order to get through this crazy 2022 or 2021. The year that we've had in the past. And so I want to do something different today, if you will indulge me. I've been watching this series, the Emmett Till series. If you've been watching it, just raise your hand. Okay, so I would encourage you, if you haven't been watching it, it came on last night, so therefore it came on Thursday night. And it's a series called Women of Movement. I would encourage you to go on demand, and I would encourage you to watch it from the beginning. And you've only missed 2 series. I would encourage you to watch it from the beginning and catch up. So do a little binge watching. But I think it's something that is really relevant to where we are today, because they make a lot of similarities to what happened in the 50s compared to what's happening today. But I think you will be enlightened. I think you will be encouraged. I think you will feel better about It's gonna make you mad. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because I get mad every time I watch it. I get upset, I get mad, but it also lets me know that we are in the right place doing the right things to make a change so that these types of things cannot continue in the future. So that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna try to put it in a general sense, but I encourage you to watch it, Women of Movement. And there's one that comes on right after that, and I can't think of the name of it. I'll get it to you before I leave. But I want to do a check-in if I can. And this is a quick check-in, right? But when you do your check-in, I'm gonna give you the challenge of what the check-in is. And did I say happy Martin Luther King holiday to anybody? Okay, I should. I should stop for a second and acknowledge the greatness of Dr. Martin Luther King on his holiday weekend and acknowledge him. So I want to say to everyone, happy Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And I hope this is a holiday that is one that you'll remember. But when you finish your statement that I'm gonna ask you to make, I'd like you to say that I'm in, which means I'm into this meeting for this 2-hour period of time. I'm into the goals and objectives that we're trying to accomplish. I am in. I'm gonna try not to double task and multitask and answer the phone, and I'm gonna take care of emergencies, of course, but I'm gonna try to stay here in this meeting, present here at this time. That's what I'm in means. It means I am in with you right here in this moment, right? We're gonna accomplish what we're gonna accomplish in the next 2 hours, and I am here and I am in, I'm in. So at the end, when I'm gonna know you're finished when you say, I'm in. You with me? All right, I see those noddings of the head, so that's good. So the thing I'm gonna ask you to do is just introduce yourself in case everybody on here doesn't know you, and I think they do, but in case they don't, just reintroduce yourself and tell us what is your greatest hope for 2022? What is your greatest hope for 2022? And I'll take anybody, or we can just start going.
All right, I'll step in, Mr. Chairman. Michael
sir.
Saragosa, City of Placerville. My greatest hope for 2022 is that we heal, COVID for sure, we want that, but that we heal as a nation from the political divide that we have, at least if we get a little bit closer to less divisiveness. So that's my hope for 2022. And I'm all in.
Great, welcome. Our job is, once he says I'm in, our job is to say welcome. Welcome, Michael, welcome.
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 Who's next?
Portia Middleton, City of Citrus Heights. My greatest hope for 2022, obviously, is to move past COVID, but also to make sure that we make great strides in improving the lives of those who are most deeply impacted. So I'm working every day to make sure that we get that done, and I'm all in.
Welcome. All right, there's a contest to see who can say welcome first, just so you know. So that way, when we say it, you know, she hears it from everybody at the same time, and she knows that we are all welcoming her into this space that we're in. Okay, so there's a contest. Just remember that. You come in late, you lose the contest. You don't want to lose. I'm too competitive, so don't want to lose. Who's next?
I go next, Rick.
Okay.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Lakvir Gag. I'm a council member in City of Live Oak. My goal for 22 is basically just trying to win control over my mind and treat everybody with love, respect, and help anybody that I can. And I was going to go get a COVID test, but I'm going to stay in the meeting, and I want you to know I'm in it for a long haul.
Welcome.
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 You see, you're gonna have to beat me. You got to come quick. I told you I'm competitive. You got to come quick. All right, who's next?
I'll go
Okay.
next.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Good afternoon, Carolyn Coleman with the League of California Cities. And my greatest hopes for 2022 are greater harmony and greater health for all of us. And I'm proud to be all in today.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Rick, you won again.
No, don't put- I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna let you guys win every once in
Chair
a while.
advantage. This is a chair advantage.
All right, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
I guess I'll go. My name is Darren Soon, City of Elk Grove. And, you know, everybody before me hit the highlights. So I want to echo those sentiments. And then just add a piece of nuance to that is, you know, we all know the challenges that we're having, or not just we, but our unhoused population and what they're going through. And I'd love to see us be able to make strides in that, in addressing that issue that seems to be on everybody's minds as well. So thank you.
Welcome.
You
I'm
in?
all in. Welcome.
Welcome. Good, good. You guys are gonna get this. You are gonna get this. You're gonna love this. I hope you do. This is something we do at every meeting that we have. And it really helps us to really focus. And so I'm hoping that'll do the same thing for this meeting as well. So keep going. Let's keep going. I want to keep the energy up. Go ahead, Jill. I hear you.
Right. My hope for this year is very similar, is a kinder, gentler community this year. I think that's I'm tired of the divisiveness, so I would like to see a kinder, gentler community, and I am all in.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Well,
Welcome. Welcome.
There you go. There we go. There we go. We're getting it. Good job. Keep going.
I can go next. I'm Holly Nickel from the Public Health Institute and the Capital Collaborative on Race and Equity. My greatest hope for 2022 is to live with more ease and more peace. And I hope that for me and for everyone. And I'm, willing to do whatever I can in my power to make that happen for me and other people. And I'm all in.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Good job, Holly. Next.
I'll go. I'm Debbie Otto Kent, and I'm with the Health Education Council. And I want to lead by saying I am all in fully. And I appreciate everybody's sharing what their hopes and dreams are. I very much aligned with my thinking. I'm hoping that we can finally, as we get through COVID, spend a little bit of time reflecting, learning, and listening about what we've learned during this journey together. And that results in an increased amount of cohesion and connection with each other.
Welcome.
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 I can go next. So
Okay.
I'm Christine Tien. And let's see. Well, I just finished this great book. It's called Whiteness of Wealth. It is maddening. It is maddening. But I think I had no idea that the IRS tax code was so horrible for people of color in particular. So so my hope is, there's some really great documentaries, the one that Rick had already mentioned, great books that are coming out just about the history of racism of this, the founding of this country was just based on racism. So my hope is that will continue and that there will be structural change as a result of all of this great knowledge that's coming out now. And I'm all in.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So I got everybody? I don't have staff. Staff, you guys are in this thing. Come on. I want everybody. Everybody's in this meeting that's going to participate. What you got, James?
I knew we'd do that. I knew we'd
Yeah.
go there. All right, James Corliss, Executive Director of SACOG. It seems small, but I know it won't be. My hope for 2022 is that my 8th grader actually gets to have an actual 8th grade graduation in person and feels awesome about it. And it isn't weird or canceled or anything else. It's like an actual thing because he and so many other kids deserve that. And I'm in. I'm all in.
Welcome.
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 Thanks for including us all, Rick. I would say that as we reflect on the great challenges that we have in our time, whether they're climate change or homelessness or equity issues, that we continue to face all those problems together and we don't weaponize those problems for political gain. That's my hope for 2022. And with that, I am very much all in, as you know.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I see you, Casey.
I'm Casey Lazan on your staff team here, and my hope for 2022 is that our collective work will make progress towards everyone in this region being able to thrive.
I like that. You in?
And I'm all in.
All right.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Johnson, also part of the staff at SACOG, and my hope for 2022 is that we support the staff and the board in this tough journey to adopt a racial equity action plan for SACOG, and I'm in.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Did I miss anybody? Anybody?
Got Lynette.
Net, yeah.
Anthony out there.
Oh, happy to share. I guess my greatest hope for this year is that my kids continue growing into good human beings. And I'm all in. Put me in, coach.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Okay. Many of you said exactly what I'm feeling, and that's why I appreciate hearing from each one of you, because you're feeling what I'm feeling and you're expressing what I want to express. And I think I want to summarize all of what you have said is that my greatest hope for 2022 is that I do everything in love, that I treat everybody with love, that I love everybody that crosses my path, and that I make a difference for those who need it the most. Those are my greatest hopes for 2022, and that I stand strong in the face of all the adversity that comes our way, especially as elected officials. I stand strong as those who came before us stood strong and stayed on the path in order to solve the issues of their day. Many of those that will still exist today, that we are now, that mantle has been passed to us, and that we have to have the courage and the steadfastness to continue the work that had been done back in the 30s, back in the 40s, back in the 50s, back in the 60s, that we're still talking about in 2022. That change comes with us. If it's going to be, it's up to me. So with that, I am 150% in and proud to be on this team.
Welcome.
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 Good, good. Okay, so did you like that? Was that good? You can't do it with a huge group. Like this was almost too large, right? But I'm so glad that we did it because I wrote down everything you said. I wrote down everything you said. And what that does is it helps me to kind of reprogram myself to what it is I need to be doing in 2022, because some of the things you said, I didn't think of. Hopefully some of the things I said, you didn't think of. But I think we're all on the same page as far as affecting change. And that's what we're here to do today, especially with this racial equity statement that we're going to be talking about. You know, this is a statement of change and commitment. It is a statement of change and commitment. And so this is really, really important work. And that's why I'm glad you guys gave up a Friday to come to this meeting, a Friday at 1 o'clock to come to this meeting. I really am appreciative that you do that. So to get us rolling and to review the goals of today's meeting, I'm going to ask our executive director, the incomparable James Corliss, to give us a little bit of an overview of where we are and where we're going.
I want you to introduce me every time I go anywhere, Rick. That's the, so thank you. And thanks everybody. I agree with Rick. Thank you for being here another Friday and sharing your time and your energy and your brains and your everything else with us, because we need it. All right, so a little bit about kind of where we've been and where we're going, and then what we're trying to accomplish today, just as a reminder to reset. As you remember, our last meeting of this working group was last November. We spent a lot of time working through the draft racial equity statement. We're going to take that on today. We were about to, or we were advising initially to move that forward at that point and edit it after the fact. And I think enough of you said, let's actually take some time. Let's make sure we feel good about this statement and move it forward. So we're going to today talk a little bit about some of those proposed edits that you have in front of you and have that discussion. I want to be just, again, as clear as I can be about process, which is if you advance the statement today, which we hope you will, with any kind of changes, that will then go to there's 3 standing committees of the SACOG board, and it's the Policy and Innovation Committee that is basically the home committee for this working group. It would, if it goes from today forward, it will go to the Policy and Innovation Committee on the first Monday in February. I believe that's Monday, February 7th, but I'm not looking at my calendar. And then if the Policy and Innovation Committee, as a committee of the board, will take that on. They will work on it, and they may well change it. I just want to be very clear. That is their prerogative. And from there, it would go to the full board if they vote to advance that forward for adoption at the February 17th board meeting. So that's just a little bit of just a reminder of the process. A reminder about the work in front of this group. It's a racial equity statement of change and commitment. It's a racial equity action plan, which is the other big thing we want your input on and to develop this year and really set our path going forward. That's the big one. And then also, you've had a few presentations on this, but we are also, as an agency, kicking off our long-range transportation plan and sustainable communities plan. And we want your input and your help shaping that with a racial equity lens to make sure that we're doing everything we can do in that long-range plan. So those are the 3 things: a statement of commitment, a racial equity action plan, a long-range transportation plan, and sustainable community strategy. That's the work ahead of this group this year. I want to remind you, you asked for more frequent meetings last year, and we have given you those. So you've got 5 meetings to come after today this year: February 25th, May 27th, July 29th, September 30th, and November 18th. Those are all on your, hopefully those are calendared, but I do want to be, I want to be cognizant of that. There's a lot of work to do, but there's also opportunity to do that work, I hope, in those meetings. Another program that we're going to talk a little bit, you've got 2 things on your agenda today. One is the racial equity statement of change and commitment. And the second is really a tee up for the conversation going forward, which is if you move that and adopt that statement today, there are a set of actions and commitments. And we want to begin a discussion with you about what do those mean? What does it actually mean to operationalize and to put into practice those actions and commitments? And I'm going to give you the best I can do. We've been sort of trying to figure out at the right level, the right altitude. I'm going to give you a presentation for that last agenda item in terms of what's the work ahead of SACOG, right? And I want the board members to weigh in on this and add your own perspective and experience and expertise. What are the things that we believe we can shape? So I'm going to try to do that to tee up that discussion. We'll see how much time we have before the end of the meeting, but that is really so 2 agenda items from this going forward. One, of course, is the statement. The other is talking a little bit about what does it mean? How do we operationalize? How do we implement it? And a discussion that we want to then pull through into the racial equity action plan. So you can begin to help us shape that. I think that's what I've got for where we've been and where we're going. I hope that's, I've been reminded to just, especially because we don't meet every month, just to try to, and you all are very busy people, just to remind you why you're here, what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the path forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so James has given a great statement on what we hope to achieve today. and what our goal is as far as what we want to do today and what we want to tee up for tomorrow. He's done that. So this would be time to ask any questions so that we're clear on what we're doing today. And James, if you've done a great job, then we can move right into the statement, because I don't see any hands up on my screen. I'm looking, but I don't see any hands up. I don't see anybody just saying, I got a question. I can see that in your face when you look at me. I can see that you got a question. Are we good? Let me see the thumbs up if we're good. Let's move forward if we're good. Okay, it looks like we are good. So James, can we get the statement up on the screen so we can take a look at it?
Yeah.
And hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to kind of go through the statement. And the staff has just done an incredible amount of work in dealing with the issue, what we felt were issues before with the statement. And so as you look at this new statement, you can see they've addressed the areas that we pointed out the last time. And so,
Hey, Rick, can I open this up?
Please.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Only because I saw it and I want to commend staff for their hard work. I added a bit more nuance, which may or may not be the version that is being shown here, but so I just wanted to explain that a little bit. And I wanted to, because I feel like, and I said this last time, but I'll emphasize it again. I feel like in order for us to be as compelling as we can, we want to try to be as accurate and nuanced in some of these things. And so there's some slight revisions that staff did here, which I'm fully supportive of, but I wanted to explain some background in terms of why I reached out. And to do that, I want to share something with you all on my screen. Oh, I can't share screen while participants. Oh, I see. Thank you. Okay. So let me try it again. Where did it go? I wanted to grab. I can't grab this one. It's in the inbox. It won't let me grab. Oh, you know why? Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. I guess I have to highlight this one. There it is. Okay. Can you all see that? Can it?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, great, thanks. So this is covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CCNR, for a house in Land Park. And so I wanted to draw your attention to number 6 that I highlighted. No persons of any race other than white or Caucasian race shall use or occupy any building or any lot, except that this covenant shall not prevent occupancy by domestic servants of a different race domiciled with an owner or tenant. So, and this is Land Park. This is, I mean, obviously it's I don't know what year this was, but it's just a testament to proof of the history that we're, I think what we're trying to do doesn't repeat itself, and that we kind of improve upon things. And so with that, I just proposed some minor changes to the opening remarks that just more broadly encompasses folks of color, but also because I understand, and folks can correct me, but I understand, the African-American community was particularly targeted with redlining. So I wanted to make sure that was still made clear. So with that, I think if James or Casey, I'm not sure who would be appropriate to walk through the revised revision for folks to look at.
So I'm sorry, I just want to make sure, did you have a recommendation that was different than the latest draft that we had?
Yeah, it's just slight. So
Okay,
it's up here. Yeah, so I see it up here now. And however you want to do it, James or Casey, do you want to show what everybody else has or just show what you've got here?
I think the way we were going to do it, Darren, is James was going to go through the edits that staff had brought forth, and then we could have a discussion about each one of those, and then we could also add within those areas that we were talking about if there was something else that we wanted to add.
Okay, well, he's got it up right here, in the pink area.
Mm-hmm.
We could start from the beginning. Sorry, go ahead, James.
Sure, and yes, so Director Soon reached out to us, flagged this concern, and so again, to try to ease a bit of the discussion today, we were trying to, and Darren hasn't necessarily seen this, so trying to reflect some of that early concern once Darren had seen the draft. So this incorporates both the changes staff made that were in your packet, and we've tried to add Director Soon's idea about really just trying to be, as he said, specific and true to what really happened and the distinction between redlining and covenants. So, okay, let's back up though. Okay, I'll try to go through all of those. I'll try to put them into one big bucket so that for the ease of following along. So the first sentence really reflects a bit of the discussion that this working group had in November. And it has reflected some discussion I've heard from other SACOG board members as well, which is to say that there are numerous inequities and disparities that exist in our 6-county region. There is obviously the inequity we think of a lot in terms of income inequality and rich versus poor and disparities by wealth. And there are also serious geographic disparities that exist. And we hear those a lot from a lot of our rural members. And so we wanted to try to kind of frame this statement by saying we recognize that there are many kinds of inequities and disparities, and we are working to tackle all of those because all those divides and disparities actually are a drag on our region and our future and our people. But this statement, as it says, right, so that's the first sentence there, and it says this particular statement is a racial equity statement. So we're making a commitment to advance racial equity. The idea being that people understand that's not where it begins and ends, but that this is a racial equity statement commitment. This is the work of the board to really, and all of you as our public members, right, to really make a commitment on racial equity. So we're trying to frame it as we recognize inequities, we know they're there, and disparities, and we're not saying they're not important, they are. And then this statement and this work is all around racial equity. So let me keep going if I can, Mr. Chair, and just because there's not a lot of them. The next item of discussion was around the term BIPOC. And wanting to be more inclusive, and I'm sure many of you and us have been around these discussions, and this is sometimes not an easy one. In other words, to be inclusive and to do it well, that reflects the true diversity of this region and our communities and our people. This is our attempt at doing that, which is to say Black, Indigenous, Asian, Hispanic, Latino, and other communities of color that have been historically disenfranchised and excluded. So that's our effort there to be inclusive. I want to again thank the SACOG staff for doing a lot of work on this and vetting it and talking to people and folks that we work with. If we move down, do you want me to keep going, Mr. Chair?
Well, I think we keep going until we hear from the group that they want to challenge and or add value to whatever change has been made or what has been left out.
Okay, so
Can I
this
just
is
add just one tiny little edit? I would love to include Pacific Islander in there too, like at the, Indigenous, Asian, that would be great. I know it's sometimes hard to, like list everybody, but
Yep. Happening in real time.
I don't think you need the "and" in there. I think you just need a comma.
Okay. And again, we're any of you are obviously certainly welcome to back and talk about any of these. Please either speak up now or absorb them. And the next paragraph, starting as the Greater Sacramento region has grown, this paragraph is where Director Soon kind of flagged, reached out. That's why he wanted to show you that covenant. So here's our proposal is, and this is an edit to the version that you had sent to you, right? Is to say, prevented the creation of generational wealth for people of color and Black communities in particular. We still wanted to emphasize that African-American communities were specifically targeted, and the data still exists to this day. But to say people of color and Black communities in particular, and then the next sentence on housing covenants, rather than is to say persistently segregated non-white from white communities per Director Soon's covenant he just walked through with you. So segregated non-white from white. So that's, again, Director Soon, you're seeing this also a little bit of real time here. So
Yeah, this looks good.
and then the final one is, if we go down, just to round this out, is to say right before the actions and commitments, address historic wrongs where health and economic outcomes for all groups are improved, safeguard commits to. Because we heard a little bit about health outcomes as well. So I think that's the extent of it. There you go.
So that is that all the feedback that you got from anybody prior to today?
That, yeah, we took your discussion in November and tried to address those concerns, which was Director Soon's desire, to be a little bit more specific around redlining and racial covenants, and that's our proposal to you today, and that's what we've heard so far.
Okay, so for us as a working group who wants to take this statement forward to the Policy and Innovation Committee and then ultimately to the full board, this would be our time to be able to add value to the statement that's in front of us and make any changes or any additions.
Yes, correct.
What's in front of us right now is the latest edit of all the changes that have been made today.
Correct.
So let's get some feedback to what we're seeing in front of us.
This is a good summation of our last meeting, and I like the way that it's written at this point. There is strength around particularly calling out, the different groups that have been impacted instead of just saying BIPOC. It's very strongly worded, and I appreciate that. I also appreciate Director Soon's acknowledgement of, redlining and making sure that we are taking a balanced approach by talking about Black communities in particular, because there's that data to support that, but also recognizing that we don't want to backslide. It didn't just affect Black communities only, it was just predominantly Black communities, and really calling out, non-white from white. It's a very balanced approach, and I think it's a good summation of what we discussed.
Mr. Chairman, this is Carolyn. And although I was not able to attend the November meeting, having reviewed the notes and the suggestions for edits, I think this document reflects those changes well. I think it's a stronger statement than where we started. And I particularly like the opening because, we won't just have folks who know who and what SACOG is pick up this document. But we'll have folks who pick it up and have no idea who is SACOG and particularly what region do they serve and what are they trying to accomplish. And so I think the opening is much stronger for those reasons. And again, I think we're in a better place than we were with the first draft.
And this
Thank
is, this is Martha Guerrero. I just wanted to, thank everybody who really have tightened up the language to reflect what our contributions from the last meeting, and appreciate Director Soon's, historical reflection on what was actually documented in the past that helped provide some guidance on, factual information to modify this. And, it's just something that we need to learn more about. And I think this really helps to reflect, what's happened in the past. And so people will start asking questions like, why is it written this way? And, we can talk about that a little more based on what Director Soon has provided. So I don't know if anybody's made a motion to approve this, but I'm happy to make one at some point.
I will put that on the docket. But I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to at least make any comment that they feel is appropriate.
Yeah, this is Michael. I want to really commend staff for the work that they did to put this together and to tighten it up. I think this is a terrific document that we're looking at today. Just within the first couple of sentences, I think it really helps mark what we're trying to do and make it distinct and say there are other things, but this here today is talking about racial inequity, and I think that's really strong. And thank you, Darren. Like, it was that long ago. I think I saw 1969 when you go further down in that document. So we're talking about 1869. This is, the not so distant past. And I think that's a good, no, thanks again, Darren.
I'm really pleased about the entire statement and all the changes that have been made, and the impact that each one of you had in helping to make those changes. To me, I look at some of the affirmations. This statement marks a commitment to advancing racial equity in order to build a thriving economy and racial environment for all residents of the Sacramento region. And then it speaks specifically about the ones particularly that should be noted. I mean, to me, this is a very, very strong statement that I can stand behind and feel like we can affect change with. So I'm really pleased with what I see today and the changes that have been made based on your comments and thoughts.
Hi all, this is Holly Nickel. I also appreciate all the work that's gone into this statement. Something that was coming up for me after rereading it is, we're saying in this first paragraph, SACOG envisions a Sacramento region where investments are made in historically marginalized communities so that race is no longer a predictor of outcomes and outcomes for all groups are improved. Is that, I mean, it's not all we're doing, but is investments the primary thing that we're kind of pushing forward for equity? To me, racial equity encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses access to things, right? Whether it's through investments or creating the actual infrastructure or what have you, but it's also about power sharing with community. Community takes some sort of onus and responsibility for their ideas and solutions, right? And so I'm wondering if there's anything around including community as decision makers or in their own solutions, right? I don't know if I'm being understandable or not. I'm just seeing blank faces.
No, you're seeing more than I am. I just have the draft in front, so I can't even see the faces right now. So, but I mean, go ahead, keep talking, because I want to make sure we all understand what it is that you're saying.
So, when I was squarely in public health, I was the grant manager, right? So we were making lots of investments to local health departments at the state level to create access for a lot of things. And I worked on creating access to parks and sidewalks and bike lanes. But are those things always what the community needs. Is there any wiggle room around funding? Is there any wiggle room around the investments? And so like the engagement of the community, right, is something that we need to do. We need to like closely partner with the community because they know like the solutions to problems that they are experiencing or challenges that they're experiencing. So I'm just kind of, I'm centering in on like, a lot of people think that equity is about access and investment, and it's not just that. It's about power shifting and inclusiveness of communities to make their own decisions and whatnot. So, and I'm a really bad wordsmither, so I can't help there, but I wanted to raise the questioning or the curiosity in my mind of what that might look like.
Holly, I totally appreciate that perspective. And I agree with it. I guess my only question is whether or not, you know, SACOG has the ability to do that, right? I mean, because if you look at the tools that we have, definitely, you know, grant funding, the bully pulpit. I just don't know if it's something, I mean, that we should put explicitly in here if it's not something that we have, you know, if it's not one of our tools, you know. And so I mean, in terms of when I'm thinking that the next step, which is implementation. And so I don't know how we would.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And I think that question was raised for me too, or a question was raised for me too about, is this the appropriate place to put that? Or is this something that is put into the racial equity action plan?
Yes.
So if there are grants, like the operationalizing of that is to have certain strategies or whatever to do more equitable community outreach, to do more, you know, of that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that if you put it into the plan as a desired outcome or something like that, I think that would be appropriate.
Chair, may I point to a couple of places where I think that will be a vehicle for that?
Okay.
This is in the commitments, and so which are listen and learn, working to build and strengthen relationships with organizations representing historically marginalized communities. And then there's also one, we've explicitly called out that we will support member and partner agencies who do provide the direct services to their residents and constituencies to build and strengthen the relationships with their community organizations. And then we also have, and this I think gets to what was said about what are sort of the criteria that we have in our grant programs, but under measure. So the action plan itself, we will develop, that was listed.
Thanks, Casey.
So Holly, how do you feel about that? I mean, we got two things we're talking about. One, as far as making sure it's a part of the action plan, but is there something else that you think we're missing in the statement of commitment and change? Do you think it should be a statement, or should you think we should put it in the plan of action?
I think for me, I'd rather have it in the plan of action. I just don't want to miss it.
No. Are you going to be?
It's more important for me to do the action rather than to state. And so, yes, I would love for us to.
Are you going to be with us on February 25th?
I hope so.
Are you going to be with us on May 27th?
I hope so. I'm planning on it.
Are you going to be us with July 29th, September 30th, November 18th? I promise
Any one of them.
I promise you, we will not miss that, right? Because I heard you say it. I know somebody is taking notes or minutes about this meeting. It is in history. I promise you we'll come back to that. That's good. But I'm glad you brought it up. I really am. And I want everybody to know that this is our safe place. So you bring up whatever it is that you want to bring up, and we can talk it through. You may not have all the answers. You may not be the best writer, as Holly says, even though I challenge her on that. I think she's a better writer than she gives herself credit for. But this is a safe place for us to be able to talk about a racial equity statement of change and commitment. And we've got to be strong in this statement because we're going to go out to the rest of our committees and we're going to go out to the rest of our board. And if we're not strong in this commitment, they're going to see through that and they're not going to accept it. So I want us to be strong. I want us to challenge each other right now today on this statement. Yes, Miss Debbie Odo Kent.
So you know, that word investments in that first paragraph stood out to me as well, and you know, caused a moment of pause to say, what are those investments? Are they just financial? And I think for, you know, Polly, you mentioned kind of this public health background, maybe, you know, that's sort of because often in public health, the approach and how we engage and whose voice leads the determination of investments and how those decisions are made are so much, right, about that we would qualify, that we would put in this investment of human capital or human voice. And so I too, you know, was thinking about, you know, what are the investments? What do we mean by that? And how do we ensure that this community voice, this including of other voices, casting a wider net, being community driven led, right, is really embodied in this overall statement. But I kind of want to go back. I think the staff did a really masterful job of capturing the comments that have been made. Appreciate you, Director Soon, you know, to really have us look more deeply around, you know, what are the facts around some of this language and where we use language and how do we make this statement be inclusive? How do we, you know, all these things that we talked about at the last meeting, I think are really included in this draft. And so for me, I know Director Guerrero, you know, made a motion to kind of endorse and approve this. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to do that. I certainly would do that because for me, what is most important is what happens next. I mean, I think the statement's robust. I think it's important. I think for me, a year from now, 2 years from now, we will be judged on how much we operationalize and brought to life the commitments that are outlined here. And so I really think, to get back to your statement, Holly, is that this, like, we will determine what we mean by that term investments in the action plans that follow.
I like that. I do. But you know, you said something, Debbie, that while you were talking, you said something and I just kind of wrote it down. Because if we wanted to make a change, you know, we could talk about that because, you know, where investments are made in historically marginalized communities so that race is no longer a predictor of life outcomes and outcomes for all groups are improved. So if we wanted to define investments, you said investments of human capital and human voice. And that just kind of resonated with me because it does describe the kind of investments that we're talking about. Maybe that's not inclusive of all the investments. Maybe that's why it should be a part of the action plan as opposed to the statement. But it kind of resonated with me because it gave me more definition to the investment.
Yeah, or maybe, I don't know if just adding the word how and where investments are made, because I mean, for me, I think the how and the process is really, really critical, as opposed to just taking a map, right, and saying we need to plunk money here. That this process and this process of how we get there is equally important.
That's a part of the action plan, I think. That's what, when you start talking about the how and the what, to me, that's the action plan that describes how we're going to get to the outcomes that we want.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment on this?
Come on, I'm asking everybody. I want to get us.
I appreciate that. I appreciate, Holly, you flagging this. And I think it's not a bad segue into that last agenda item today, which is like getting to know a little bit more about us and SACOG and what the tools, I mean, Director Soon said this too, the tools we have, right, and how we see the world. I mean, I think, and trying to remember all the history of each of these sentences is a little hard because there's a lot of staff, and like our staff has done a lot of work on this. I just want to recognize them early now. But partly, I think where this is coming from, why you're flagging is this is how we view the world, right? This is a lot, and our board members know this. We view the world through going after grants, doing investments, right? That is partly our job. And I hate to mess with a statement that is, I think, on the brink of, getting your endorsement, but to make it simpler, I could see, and this is about envisioning, so we're high level here. SACOG envisions a Sacramento region where race is no longer a predictor of life outcomes, and just actually don't even worry about, right? Because if we're envisioning, we go, and then down below, what Casey was saying earlier, and that her Zoom got cut off, was we're trying to signal in those commitments and action statements a little bit of the how, and I think a little bit of the authentic community voices and engagement, which is not something that we have been good at. So that's a way to go, is to simplify rather than to add qualifiers, actually simplify it. Just a thought.
I appreciate that thought. I think that would be great. I think investments is a tool that y'all use, right? And so that would also be captured in the action plan. So we wouldn't lose that either. So yeah, I would agree with simplifying that wording.
I totally agree. That I think would also be more compelling. Because
Sacramento envisions a Sacramento region where race is no longer a predictor of life outcomes, and outcomes for all groups are improved. Was that it?
Yeah, and I think that kind of makes sense too, because at the beginning we said, there's other inequities, but in this case, we're talking about racial inequities, and that just kind of ends it on that same note.
So then the investments that are made are then a part of the action plan moving forward, is the how we're going to get to make sure that race is no longer a predictor of life outcomes and all groups are improved.
Yes.
That makes sense? I don't have everybody, so I can't see you yet. I can't see all of you. I can't see how many people are nodding their head yes, no, or what.
It's a good six, James.
And we don't have reactions on this, because usually we could do thumbs up or something, but.
Mr. Chair, I think that was a great discussion and a terrific edit. It makes this really a bold statement.
And I wish I could take credit for it. I just stated it again. So,
You chaired the meeting, so you kind of get credit for it.
Yeah.
No, our CEO was the one who said, if we want to make this simple but bold and stronger, and I think that's what I heard. Does anybody disagree with that? Sacramento region, SACOG envisions a Sacramento region where race is no longer a predictor of life outcomes, and outcomes for all groups are improved. Do we all agree with that? Are we good on that?
Yeah, I'd like to second Martha's motion if you're ready for that, Chair.
Well, I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity to hear it, to meditate on it, to internalize it, and feel like it is something that they can support without any question. So I'm just trying to give it time to kind of marinate, as we say, when we put that meat on the grill, we want it to marinate first. But if not, there is a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other changes that we want to talk about, or any other considerations that we want to talk about before we vote on this? Lynette, you got to be my eyes, because I can't see. The only person I can see is Darren.
Chair Jennings, I don't.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't see any raised hands. And it looks like we're all set. And also just to note for the record that there is no public comment on this item thus far.
That was my next question, was public comment, so you're ahead of me. Okay, let's, if you guys are okay and we all are ready to vote on this, let's take the vote.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. If you could indicate yes or no. I will start with our SACOG board members. Clark Kretz is absent. Gallardo,
Yes.
Gog,
Yes.
Guerrero,
Aye.
Middleton,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Chenier, absent. Soon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Frericks is absent. Chair Jennings.
Aye.
And moving over to our external members, Avital Barnea is absent. Carolyn Coleman,
Aye.
Chet Hewitt is absent. Elisa Herrera, Elisa, if you can hear me, could you indicate your vote? She'd been having some technical difficulties, so I'll check my email to see if she's responded that way. But I do see she's online. Heather Hostler, absent. Eileen Jacobs,
Yes.
Holly Nickel,
Yes.
Debbie Odo Kent,
Yes.
Christine Tien,
Yes.
and Josh Wood is absent. Motion carries.
Congratulations. Good job. I couldn't be more proud of this team. You guys, that was great. I mean, we're talking about a racial equity statement of commitment, right? A racial equity statement of change. And it's strong. And now it'll go to the Policy Innovation Committee, and then it'll go before the full board. And there may be some additional edits. People come back with some additional edits. But I think we have a strong statement. I mean, they could make the 5% changes that they need to make, but I don't think it's going to take away from the strength of the statement. So I'm really proud of the statement that we have in front of us, one that I know I personally can stand behind, and I hope you do as well. So good job. Good job. All right. So
Chair
now the
Jennings.
work begins, right? We got our statement. Now the work begins. Hey, Jim, James, you want to take us through the next step on how to act on those commitments of racial equity and racial equity?
I'd love nothing more, but I think Lynette had something to say.
Okay.
Thanks, James. I just wanted for the record to note that Elisa Herrera did communicate with me that her vote also on the statement was yes, just for the record.
Wonderful. And we're unanimous. That's the good thing too. I love that. You know, not that you can't be, not that you can't go the other way. It's good. But I mean, when all of us agree, we're all moving forward. I love that. That's powerful. Okay, James, you got it?
I got it. Yeah, I just want to thank the working group members for that. And I really, I mentioned it, but I really want to thank the SACOG staff. Eric and Casey have done a lot of work, but behind the scenes, there's a really solid team of people on your staff here at SACOG that have put a lot of time and effort and research and making sure that we've got that statement all lined up and well researched. So I thank you for your effort and your patience, and I want to thank the SACOG staff for all their work on that.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
As soon as possible, and I know you guys are going to do this because you're incredible in a lot of different ways, but especially from an administrative standpoint. But when we get the final statement, and we've taken out all the edits and all the line throughs and everything like that, when we get the final statement, if you could send that out to all of us so that it's something that we can continue to look at, read, internalize, that'd be great.
Sure. Happy to do that, Mr. Chair. I know our staff is on it. So we'll make sure not only does it go forward into our Policy Innovation Committee, but we'll get you the final version as you just requested. Okay, so I wanted to see if we could tee up a bit of a discussion here, as I mentioned at the top of this meeting. And I would love, by the way, our SACOG board members to weigh in here, since they are also now the experts in what SACOG is, who we are, what we do. Clearly, each of you are experts in your fields, and that's why we're thrilled to have you, our public members. But even just that sentence that we talked about a few minutes ago on investments, I think again suggests something really important, right? Which is, what's the work we do? What's the work? What are the opportunities? And how can we put a racial equity lens on those? How can we lead with equity? Because the statement you just adopted and those actions, we want to try to pull that through into that racial equity action plan and make sure that, and my, as your executive director, my desire would be to go deeper on some things rather than go broader, right? And I know, and this, I don't want to stop brainstorming, but I will say, I think there's a lot of things we could do. And I think this is the, certainly my experience is that we do a few things well, and we can really lead with racial equity in a few things and really, and really show some success and change the way we interact and we invest and everything else. I think success breeds success. So, all right. So I'm not going to bore you with a 25 slide PowerPoint on whose sake I cut all the budget numbers out in the org chart. I stopped myself, okay? Just like incredible restraint for me. But I do just want to give you a sense of who we are, especially for our public members. So because we are a council of governments, we're a metropolitan planning organization, we're a regional planning agency. We consist of 22 cities, 6 counties. We have an enormous, actually, geographic footprint, as you can see from our map here. And I used to work at our sister agency down in the Bay Area, MTC, and we had almost that same footprint, but 110 cities and 27 transit agencies. So one of the cool things among many about this agency is every single jurisdiction is on the board of directors. And Carolyn will appreciate this. Every city and county gets to show up twice a month. They're at that table. I think that actually is, even when we think about, we can't do this alone. So when we adopt a racial equity statement, we also need our partners, our local government members, our partner agencies, transit agencies, Caltrans District 3, right? We need them at our side doing this too, because we are not alone here. It's not on our shoulders to fix all these things. It's on us to create partnerships. So 22 cities, 6 counties, a booming region, 2.4. Actually, we're now north of 2.5 million people. So that's our footprint. And those are our incorporated cities and our counties. And I'm happy to take questions as we, again, there's not a lot here, I promise. It was a great exercise just to think a little bit about how do I give you the Reader's Digest intro. Like I said, it's not an easy thing to do. I think as Winston Churchill said, I would have written you a short letter, but I didn't have time. So, so what does SACOG do? And this again is part of what we will when we get new board members joining our board every couple of years, we run through the kind of the 101 for SACOG. We describe ourselves often as a planning agency. We do plan. We have wonderful planners, some of the best, and not just in the state, but in the country. We do a long range plan, which is our big thing. That's our so-called MTPSCS. We're going to change the branding of that name, but it'll be this time out. It'll be a look out to 2050. It'll be a 30-year plan for transportation, growth, housing, economic development. So we plan. We have a lot of other plans we do too. We fund, back to that word investment, right? We often see the world this way. We both award grants and we also compete for grants. We work with our partner agencies, and now at the federal level, with the infrastructure bill, we're going to be competing hopefully for a lot more. And we're going to be competing partly based on our commitment to equity and our intentions around equity. We coordinate. We have a table, as I said, not just among our 28 local governments, our 31 board members, but our partner agencies, our stakeholders. We have a lot of coordination role. We do a little bit of operations, but I want to say we are not a heavy operating agency. So again, if you don't know COGS and MPOs, we are not the front line We're not filling your potholes or running your buses. We're really more the investor in those things. But we do have a few things we operate. Freeway Service Patrol, 511, things we stand up, often on behalf of our members. And then finally, we do a lot of advocacy, and we're really trying to strengthen that muscle around state advocacy in the legislature and federal advocacy at the federal level. And not last but not least, we inform. And I think this is one of the things that we really have a skill set in, is we have great data and analysis. We have wonderful staff who know how to take reams of data and translate it into something that people can digest. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. What's coming up? And I keep mentioning, 3 things that we want the working group to sink their teeth into. The statement, the Racial Equity Action Plan, and our long-range plan, but obviously there's a lot more on our plate. Next month, this Engage, Empower, Implement community engagement program, our board put $3 million really for the first time into a bottom-up grassroots community engagement program to empower local communities, communities of color, disenfranchised communities, to be able to begin to shape. And we're still developing a framework. So this is live this year. You'll hear a lot more from our staff of Rosie Ramos on this in February when you all meet again as a working group. But this is a commitment. It was a down payment in my mind from the board, who recognized from the previous incarnation of this Race Equity Inclusion Working Group a year and a half ago, we had to do something. $3 million in this program. We hope we can leverage more and even invest more. But how we do that, how we shape it, how we do it in partnership with cities and counties, how we do it in partnership with community-based organizations is critical. We want your thoughts and feedback. We are not a direct service provider. We are not a retail agency going out into community and doing, one-on-one. We have to do that in partnership with our other agencies and our member agencies, or it won't succeed. But we know we need to do better. We need to do a better job of engaging our communities and having them shape the things that we eventually have the tools for to fund and invest in. A few more highlights on this screen. I mentioned grants and investing. We have this year, we will kick off a number of different buckets of transportation funding. So we are a funding agency for our 4 counties, Sacramento, Yolo, Yuba Sutter. We have partner agencies in Placer and El Dorado that we work very closely with that also do a call for projects there. We have a really, really awesome program called Green Means Go, which is actually an infrastructure funding program for infill housing. And because that's a big part of our climate strategy and our housing strategy. We got some state money for that this year. We are just in the final stages of a regional parks and trails plan to connect all of our 6 counties with a network and all the parks and green spaces with a network of trails, biking and walking. Chair Jennings and many of our board members have been enthusiastic supporters of this. We think it could be transformational. But again, the question, right, that we have already been trying to ask, how do we make sure that disadvantaged communities get the benefit, the communities of color get the benefit, get improved accessibility? Public transportation, lots that we do there on the planning side, right? We're not the operator, but we get grants, we award money, we have different tables. And then finally, Regional Progress Report is kind of our report card for the region. It's a lot of our data and analysis. And for the first time ever, a year ago this month, we cut everything we could by race, ethnicity. So, and what we've found was not a surprise to any of you, which is huge disparities by race, ethnicity across the region, huge. And finally, last but not least, our Youth Leadership Academy. We've stood that up under the leadership of our director, Jay Chenier. 4th year out now. We have high school students and we walk them through and really engage them in a whole set of workshops and sessions around what is regional planning, how do we think about the future, how do we work, we get all elected officials engaged with them, and that's a wonderful thing. That's really just a very, very quick, sampler plate, if you will. So I want to end here to get discussion. Here are the actions. You've just passed a statement that have these actions. I've shorthanded the descriptions just for the ease of putting words on a PowerPoint, which I never like doing, putting lots of words on. Listen and learn, plan, support, act, and measure. And with a final question here for all of you, to really have an open conversation and right, just to tell us and have this iterative feedback loop. What else do you need to know about us as we go forward here and develop this racial equity action plan? What else do you need to know in order to help us shape our commitment to racial equity and to inform this racial equity action plan? So there, I try to stay at a bit of a high level, not wanting to overwhelm everybody with a whole ton of information, but what else would you like to know about how we work, what we work on, the tools we have? We and the staff here happy to engage in this conversation. But we thought this was an important moment just to stop and pause after the adoption of the statement and to really pause and hold on these commitments and ask the questions and get your feedback now so we can begin working on the racial equity action plan. That's what I've got.
You've got a question out there to us. What else do you need, each one of us? And I think, James, we were kind of talking about it a little bit when we were trying to come up with our final statement of change and commitment, is just exactly what you're talking about. I think for me, what I need is, I've been a person all my life. You plan, you organize, you implement, you monitor, you recognize. Kind of almost what I'm looking at right here on the board, on the computer. You plan, you organize, you implement, you monitor, you recognize. So, we have a plan now with our racial equity statement. We have the start of a plan. It's now the implementation. Like, what is it that we need to do in order to make our plan come true? And I think that's what you're asking us. What do, and if I can personalize it, what do I need in order to make the plan come true? So I can either personalize it or I can talk about the agency as a whole. What do we need to do within the agency to make this plan come true? And that's the question that's on the table. And I can't see anybody, James, so I can't tell whether hands are up or, yeah, thank you. Thank you, that is so helpful. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking it's Friday, it's 2:30, you're ready to shut this day down and come back and talk about this at our next meeting? That's kind of what I see you guys at right now. Like, you got a lot out of me by getting that statement of change and commitment, right? So, okay, I see Martha. I see Holly. Okay, good. So give me something good.
Thank you, Rick. When I take a look at, is like a social worker perspective. When I'm out there in the community and seeing how some people are economically disadvantaged and they are combined to be, having that minority status and a non-white person, I wonder what we can do as a city to bridge that gap and to make sure that we go in and reach in deeply with the resources, because we need to do a little more work to open up those doors so that they are more economically secure in some way or can find a path forward. And for example, the bike share program is one of those programs that I talked to earlier today. And the bike share program is one that, SACOG is partnered with a few cities here with West Sacramento. And that's a program where I think maybe doing and this is just an example because we were working on that when we were discussing it. What can we do to provide more outreach to those that are disadvantaged, to make sure that, and I know we've made some strides, making sure that, people on public benefits can access those resources at a lower cost or for free. If there's a subsidy that can be tapped in working with, another, public agency, for example, the county, or what can we do to inform people in their own language and make it user friendly? Tied to, culturally, what is it that helps them to feel more comfortable as we, share these resources to make sure they are utilizing it, making sure that along the way we're asking ourselves the question, is it accessible? Is it user friendly? Do people understand, if they don't have the technology, do people have, understand how they can access? So that's just an example that I wanted to put out there on like a SACOG role as it's tied to our statement that we just approved.
Okay. Good. Holly? I think I had you next and then Deborah after that.
Yeah, thanks. So in creating these plans, my thinking always goes to what are we responsible for deciding on? Like, what do we do, right? I see these different categories. Is there anything within these categories or anything else where it might not be obvious to a public member where you would make decisions? I'm just trying to think, because anywhere you make a decision in your organization is somewhere that you can insert an equity strategy. So I'm just trying to understand. I hear like the funding, you'd make decisions around funding and like how to give out that funding, right? And like the guidelines for those funding opportunities. And then, you're helping to plan. So those are decisions being also made by y'all in partnership with other organizations and people. Is there anywhere, for my understanding, is there anywhere else that like maybe is nuanced in your decision making, that you have decision making capabilities that also like we would want to put our equity lens around? And also, I guess my other question is, this is not only just kind of like, we're not going to be looking at racial equity strategies as just like outward facing in our programs, but internally as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Somebody's recording all this stuff, I know. How, Debbie?
So thank you, James, for giving us kind of an overview and those kind of major bucket areas of what's happening currently with SACOG. Because I think for, kind of as a community person, I don't have a extraordinarily deep depth and breadth of understanding of all of the things that SACOG is doing. But as you were describing those, those activities or those buckets of work, it seems to me that that SACOG is now trying to embed racial equity focused activities, analysis, priorities, programs. And so as we put together this action plan, for me, that was a good place to start, to wrap, just as a starting place, like these are the things that are kind of happening now. And then moving forward, what else? What are the other things that need to happen or be included in the activities? And I'm going back to the sentence that we took out in the first paragraph around investments, like how does that need to happen? What are the different approaches that need to happen? And how do we kind of prospectively include those things? And I think as we look at the commitments that were outlined, the plan is the tangible thing that's the outcome. The other commitments are activities and actions that could be embedded in the plan, it seems to me. Like, who are we listening to and who are we learning from? Who are we not listening to? Who are we supporting? How are we supporting in membership? So to me, the second bullet there, the plan is the outcome, and the other items can really inform that. And I have a question that, so is the intention that this racial equity action plan will really inform the long range plan as well? Or is this a piece of the long range plan that's going to be developed throughout this next year?
Can I start, Casey, and you can jump in here? So they're going to have to run, Debbie, the long range plan is going to have to run a little bit in parallel the racial equity action plan, just simply because of timing. So we have kicked off our long range plan. And so we are asking the questions, what would it mean? What does it mean to embed equity and racial equity in our long range plan? We have a framework that we discussed with the board of directors that's a triple bottom line framework. So equity, economy, environment. We want that to be kind of the overarching frame. But of course, you know, there's words. And so the question is then, what does it mean underneath that? So yes, I would imagine, and again, this is I think because this is a better process. We don't have the answer about what's in the racial equity action plan yet, right? We want you to inform that. And ideally, we would like some of our non-traditional partners to inform that. But we also know that we've got to start working on our long range plan now. And that's a little, you know, honestly, you know this, Debbie, we were going to actually bring, rather than this item, we were going to bring the long range plan to you all. We started kicking that around, and it is so important and it is so technical that we're happy to bring that back. And you should, what do you need to know from SACOG? I want to know what's going on with the long range plan. Let's ask us and we can put that on the agenda. But we wanted to start, and we felt like at an even higher level, like what's the work of SACOG? What levers did we pull? What decisions did we make, as Holly said, and just try to at least sort of introduce those to you. I know Eileen has her hand up. One other thing I just want to say, and maybe I'm saying it for the folks beyond even just this working group, and everybody knows that on SACOG staff. And I know you all know this is not an academic exercise, nor should it be, but we're about to go compete for a number of federal transportation grants, more than we've ever seen in our lifetime. It is mind-boggling how many resources are now available. And the question they're going to ask us as a region is, what have you done for equity? How much is equity embedded in this proposal? And we cannot box check that. We cannot phone that in. They are paying attention, as they should, right? And so I think that's a great, you know, it's like, where's the rubber hit the road? What does this mean? How's this real? Well, that is one place this is going to get very real very quickly. And so, you know, we want to, like many, we want to be ahead of that curve. We're trying, right? But we're going to get asked that question. And that EEI program I mentioned, we'll come back in February for, is really intended, maybe not for this cycle of federal grants right now, but the next one ideally is try to go further up the pipeline, try to have communities engage and shape more of those projects.
Eileen.
Thank you. I know you know this, and especially James, you hear this from me in any setting in which I attend a meeting, but I want to repeat that we cannot divorce the race and equity issues from income issues. And we have to be paying attention to addressing housing affordability at the same time that we are addressing equity. There is no way to separate affordability and equity. And I want to make sure that we discuss that affirmatively in the context of our meetings, that we talk about where SACOG is in terms of land use planning and affordability, and where the region is in terms of affordability for the people who live here. Because it's not, the race and equity issues are not the same across all income groups. And the income and affordability issues are not the same across all racial groups. I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but I feel like it needs to be said.
No, and I'm glad you said it. And honestly, probably even in my quick slide presentation, I didn't emphasize enough the role that we do have really working with our local government partners on housing, on affordable housing, and affirmatively furthering fair housing. And again, back to the data, and I don't think I'm shocking anybody, and Eileen knows this better than anybody, but and I'll speak to some of the board directors at SACOG. The racial wealth gap on housing, right, is shocking. And what can we do as a region to close that gap? So that is something, if this group would like to see that in the racial equity action plan and pulling it back into some of these meetings, we can do that.
Well,
Yeah. So Eileen, if you were in church with me, we'd say to you, preach, girl, keep preaching. You know, we'd say amen to everything you just said.
I will take every amen and I will keep preaching.
No, please do. But I think that's that does need to be a critical part of our action plan. And I think we all know that. So Darren, what you got?
Thank you, Chair. Just to piggyback off of what James was saying, one of the ways we could tie that the gaps to housing and is we've also talked from the SACOG perspective how we actually build housing, affordable housing, and we've talked about market rate as well. So that's a charge that is specific to SACOG that would definitely impact what we're trying to accomplish through this group. So I just put that out as an example and kind of targeting what we started the conversation with Holly and just trying to figure out what tools do we have at SACOG that we can use to move the needle in that space. And I think that just fits right in with what we've been trying to tackle as well, is how to get more housing built.
Yep, I'll be the broken record like I always am, and that is, it's great to build affordable housing, but how do we get on a path to ownership, home ownership, especially in communities of color? And I think that's an important topic and action item that we can tackle, and that's one that shows metrics. Are we able to move the needle at all in communities of color towards a home ownership? As opposed to just getting people into affordable housing. Yes, we have to do that, but I also would like to see us moving towards home ownership paths as well within communities of color. So I think that's something that we can and should be working on.
If we're going to affect the sins of the past, that is a huge priority as it relates to generational wealth. We have to tackle home ownership, not just affordable housing. So Michael, I am 189% behind you in that statement. You keep bringing it up to this group so we can keep focusing on it. Keep saying over and over again what you continue to say since I've been on this council with you, right? Home ownership is the key.
Will do.
Agreed. Thanks, Michael.
All right, Gog. Gog, I think you're on mute.
Yes, thank you, Rick. I think that we need to address that there's a number of people out there that do farm work and they can use affordable housing just like any other community. And we need to address that real deeply, because where are we going to get our food if these people don't have a place to live and they can't go out there work on the farm because they can't afford the transportation, and they're also could be possibly behind in education. They have all these different issues, and we need to always keep the farmer in mind when we're talking about everything, that he's just like any other nationality, but he doesn't really have any color or any kind of originality. That could be from anywhere from around the world, but they're here to service us, make sure that we have food on our table. That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, your 2 cents keeps my belly full. So I thank you for those 2 cents. It's important to make sure that our farmers are taken care of, because they do keep our food coming into us and it keeps us going. So it's very important. Great point, Scott. Jill, and then Eileen after her.
I just wanted to thumbs up with Director Gog mentioned, and just remind us that so much of it sometimes is perception. And I always think about running buses for Elk Grove School District out to Rancho Marietta area. And I would get people saying, oh, you're doing it because you're going out to Rancho Marietta where there's people, high income levels. And they somehow in there forgot all of the farms that we were stopping at along the way to pick up the farm workers' kids that are working in those areas. And it was very easy to overlook that. And it always was concerning to me that people didn't realize you're looking at the home and the farm, but you're not necessarily looking at the workers who are living on that property as well. And so I think it's just important that we don't always assume, and we be really aware of perceptions too.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Eileen.
Thank you. And just on the theme of farm worker housing, I just think it's very important for us to continue to recognize that that is a race and equity issue, but it is an income level issue to the extreme. The farm worker community in this region is extremely low income, and often the only housing program that is made available for farm workers is to the very few who can do self-help housing and build their own home. And that is not the answer. Farm workers need decent, affordable rental housing within all the communities in the region. And it is an agricultural region, and the need for farm worker housing is not exclusively in one area or another. It's throughout the region. And if we don't separate out farm worker housing in terms of what jurisdictions are paying attention to, planning for, looking for help to build, we will ignore it, because that kind of falls to the bottom of the list as a general rule.
Thanks, Eileen. Thanks for those comments. Anybody else? I'm looking at Martha. I see Martha's hand is up.
Thank you, Rick, and appreciate everybody's insight and feedback. When thinking about the farm workers and the experience we've had here in West Sacramento and our interaction with them, one of the things that comes to mind was during the fires. During the pandemic were the fires, and they were out on the fields. The ones who couldn't work in a closed environment, shielded from the elements out there and what they were exposed to, and then limited access to healthcare and limited access to testing and PPE. And I still think when we limit resources, there becomes a culture that it's not needed, and then they end up to be the ones that are the ones first in line to be hit the hardest. And you've seen it in the statistics. So access to healthcare education, and education for the kids is another area. I've heard of. We had somebody who was working here for Yolo County who would go out and help tutor the kids. So just kind of thinking that holistically, what are the resources and the needs are for our farm workers.
You've taken it down to a whole nother level, which is the next generation, that if we don't do something to affect our parents, then the kids are going to follow in the same footsteps that their parents have followed. So thanks for bringing that up. Carolyn.
Hey, Rick, appreciate all the comments on the call today. And, we're sort of like the choir around this work. And so amens are plentiful across the board. But I would just encourage SACOG as we go forward to have a plan that obviously reflects the strong commitment of the organization, but also is willing to meet your members and your stakeholder agencies where they are. Because I think there will be work to bring them along. We've all experienced in this space where there are hard and difficult conversations that have to be held. And sometimes folks take a racial equity plan to mean that you're calling them a racist, and that's not the case at all. So I think it will just be important as we think about outreach and developing communications materials that we be mindful of the diversity of the audiences we're reaching in a 6-county region like this one.
Very well said.
Carolyn, that never happens at the league.
My hope for 2022.
There you go. There you go. Go back to what I asked you to about. Who else? Who else? Come on, I only got 9 more minutes. Who else? Anybody else got anything else? Come on, I'm trying to get y'all out of here by 3. Are we done? Oh, I saw some nods of heads on that one. James, anything else you want to get from this today?
I think we're good. I think the discussion, I'm really glad that we held the statement from last November over, and we did that work, and we even wordsmithed in real time. And again, I appreciate the level this working group's at. You're engaged, you gave us edits, but you also, it's that could have been an even longer process, but I think we came up with a great product, and I'm proud of it. So thank you. I do want to confirm that the Policy Innovation Committee of the board, the SACOG board, meets Monday, February 7th at 10 a.m. That's where this statement will go next. And then, of course, you've got your next meeting happening right after, a few weeks after that, on February 25th. So that's all I've got.
So James, on the statement, and I thought I understood this, but I'm just clarifying. It goes to the Policy and Innovation Committee next. Will it come back to us before it goes to the full board, or goes directly to the full board?
Directly full board. It's up to the Policy Innovation Committee, obviously. I hope I was clear, right? As a committee of the board, they get to unpack, think about it, look at it, suggest edits. But our recommendation will be, once they've had a crack at it, advance that to the full board, which would be Thursday, February 17th.
Okay. So then when we meet again on February the 25th, we will know that it's been adopted by the full board or not.
You will now.
And
we'll
know
in the waiting room.
And we'll know exactly the revisions that have been made. And I'm hoping that in real time, this committee can get the revisions that have been made by the Policy and Innovation Committee. We can get those so we can see that. And then we might even have comments at the full board meeting as to whether or not we agree or not agree.
We can absolutely do that. And I would, these are obviously all public meetings, as this one is too. So I would invite all of you. And remember, for SACOG board members, you're not on the policy committee, but you are welcome to attend any committee. So we extend that invitation in the spirit of inclusiveness, and also because you've put so much into this, and I think it would be, if you have that time, it'd be valuable. So be in touch with us. Those are all public meetings. We will get you the agendas in advance. We typically put them out a week in advance. And for SACOG board members, don't feel like you can't come to that committee meeting just because you're not on the committee.
Great. Last comments, anybody? So let me close you out with a couple of things. We made great progress today. We got our racial equity statement of commitment and change. And this is something that will guide SACOG for many years to come. So we should all be proud of the work that we did today, as they were proud of work that they had done in the past. And I talked to you about the show, Women of the Movement, that I encourage you to watch. And then I found out that the second show that comes on right after it, you don't even need to change your channel. It's called Let the World See. Let the World See. And what that's about is a mother who let the world see what her son looked like after he had been killed. And she would not let anything be done to his body. And it starts with the funeral and the body, showing of the body, but then it goes a whole lot deeper than that. And so just like we're trying to affect change today in 2022, they were trying to affect change in 1955. And every year thereafter, people have been trying to affect change. And so that's why I'm so proud of us today, of the work we've done with the racial equity statement of change and commitment. So I'm really proud of us today. Our work continues. We now got an action plan to put together, right? So our work continues, but we are making progress. And there will never be any real change unless there's progress. And so we'll meet again on the 25th, 27th of May, July 29th, September 30th, and November the 18th. And I hope you will stay as committed to this working group as anything that you have in your life, because we affect six counties we affect. And I think that is huge as far as making change and affecting change. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for your time, your commitment. Thank you for the wonderful smiles. Everybody smiling? I can see your smiles. Hold on, I got to get a picture of this. Hold on. I got to capture this. All right, smile. Got you. All right, have a wonderful day. Have a great Martin Luther King holiday weekend. I know we're not marching. I know we're not doing the things that we normally do, right? But we still can honor a man that made significant difference in our world. So have a great Martin Luther King holiday and look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
That's a great statement, Rick. That's a great statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Somebody called me Mr. Chair. I heard you. Is that Holly? Okay, I missed it then. All right, call me on my cell phone. You got my number. Call me. If I didn't get to you, call me. All right. We good, Kurt?
It's great, Rick. You know, when I think about this, this committee was about expanding the diversity of the voices at SACOG, and before we even adopted a statement, and it's phenomenal. And